Hey Jasper. Just wanted to make a quick response to the video you did about whether or not our senses are trustworthy. Some of the things that you were talking about there. First off, I'd like to say it's nice to finally see someone out there who's actually talking about atheism philosophically. All the time I see all these scientists attacking theists, and it's actually this argument that you're talking about in this video that makes their arguments fail. It's true that science depends on sensory perceptions, but that's okay because science doesn't aim at truth, or at least not ultimate truth. Science is pragmatic. If it's useful and it makes sense, then we'll keep pretending it's true until we figure out something even more useful. Science doesn't deal with science does deal with physical possibilities. And it can show us when we're wrong about our perceptions of the world, but it can't show us when we're right because it only deals with subjective evidence, and so it can only lend strength to things by providing evidence. We can't actually prove them, and so it's not really truth that we're after. You could say that they're aiming towards truth, though they'll never get it, but I think it amounts to the same thing. Now, the claim God exists, speaking simply of a higher power, not of any specific God, that's not something that science deals with because it can't be proven wrong. And if it can't be proven wrong, that means that it can't be tested. And that's where I've seen most atheists fall into the trap, because they assume that since science can't prove God's existence or even find evidence of it, that means that God doesn't exist. The problem there is that the claim God does not exist is equally as disprovable and untestable. It's true that you can't find scientific evidence of God's non-existence, but you can't find it's true that you can't find scientific evidence of God's existence, but you also can't find scientific evidence of God's non-existence. Once more talking specifically about a generic higher power, religious texts can be proved wrong, and you can show that those people weren't actually there at that time and whatnot. But the idea of just a higher power you can't disprove scientifically. So I have to say that I agree with the most part with those who claim that scientific atheists are atheists out of faith, because the default scientific position should be agnosticism. And as far as science is concerned, the whole question is really gobbledygook. They shouldn't even consider themselves anything, because there's no subjective evidence which will send us either way unless you're looking at a specific God. And theism and atheism are philosophical stances, and when taken as such, they don't require faith, which is the nice thing. Or at least they shouldn't require faith. If your argument requires faith, you probably need some help at argumentation. But when talking about theism as opposed to religion, you're dealing with logical possibilities, which doesn't really mesh with science, because when suddenly it's possible for a purple elephant to be dancing a jig in the corner, scientists tend to shy away, but you can't logically disprove it. So, again, I commend you on actually thinking about your arguments instead of simply saying, I'll see it when I believe it, or attacking the character of Jesus. It's nice to see an atheist who actually thinks. That being said, I have a bit of a request, as it were. I think I covered this one, my response to this argument in a video a while back, but I'd like to hear your opinion, because you actually have a few answers that I never bothered to think of before. The argument is the ontological argument for God's existence. It's real simple, has the benefit of having a really loose description of God, which makes it harder to disprove. though I think Anselm, who touted it, did try to take it further and apply other characteristics to God with it, but that didn't really work out as well. But the argument is deductively valid. The premise is that God is the greatest thing conceivable, which is all right. I can accept that you can define God that way. Existence is always greater than non-existence, because if something's conceivable and it exists, that's greater than just being conceivable. So if existence is always greater than non-existence, then the greatest thing conceivable must necessarily exist. Therefore, God exists. And it does sound a bit silly at first, the first time you hear it, but I can imagine a whole lot of non-existent things which rule, but eventually you do have to admit that it's not really them that rule, only that if they did exist, they would rule. I'll take the greatest pizza in existence over an imaginary better pizza any day. So yeah, I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, so hopefully I'll hear back from you soon.